All right, good afternoon again, everyone. It's Nick Petro at the National Weather Service. It's 5:30 on Sunday, September 9th, with a Hurricane Florence briefing. And just wanted to give a quick update to the webinar that we hosted earlier in the day. And of course, we'll continue these 11:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. webinars right through the duration of the event. So anyway, moving right on to the current situation. And this is the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. And you can see that, this should actually say Hurricane Florence. So I apologize for that. In fact, that should say Hurricane Florence because it is now a hurricane. Anyway, you can see the track really hasn't changed a whole lot from what we did or what we had or showed earlier. You'll see that by 2 p.m. Thursday, and again, remember what the cone means. The cone means where it's only demonstrating where the center of the storm may go. That is the range of possibilities, if you will, of where the storm may track. So, the center of the storm, that is, the center. It could track anywhere within this cone. I mean, it could track outside of it as well, but this is the most likely 2/3 of the time it follows within this, based on historical errors, it falls within this cone. That doesn't necessarily exclude impacts and hazards outside the cone, so keep that in mind. I just wanted to get that out of the way. But right now it's moving west at 7 miles per hour, max winds 85 miles per hour. Again, the timing here, you could see late week. This is a late week event for central North Carolina, assuming that this track holds. So folks should be basically, getting their stuff together for storm impacts later this week, and preparedness information should be well underway. So this is some key messages from the National Hurricane Center, and these two messages kind of summarize everything at this point. So obviously we're still, 4 or 5 days away from substantial impacts, but there's increasing risk for 2 life-threatening impacts from Florence, no doubt. Storm surge at the coast and freshwater flooding from prolonged heavy rainfall inland. While it's too soon to determine the exact timing, location, and magnitude of these impacts, interests not only at the coast, from South Carolina to the mid-Atlantic region, should monitor closely, but also folks inland as well with that freshwater, inland freshwater flooding threat. And ensure that you have your hurricane plans in place and follow any advice given by local officials. Also, it's already underway. The large swells, we've already heard reports of rip current rescues, and quite a few of them, I might add, along the Carolina coast. So, folks, if you know anybody at the beach this week, even early this week, the rip current machine is underway already. So, it's probably best for folks just to stay out of the water at this point until the storm comes and goes. It's going to be dangerous, life-threatening rip currents all this week. All right. So given the track that I just showed a few slides ago, here is the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities. And you can see, gosh, we're looking at, with these probabilities, I mean, that's a near certainty, again, assuming that track holds. So, with that in mind, and notice too how it sort of moves and penetrates well inland, these high winds. So this isn't going to be high winds just at the coast. We're talking potential for at least tropical storm force winds even well inland. So let's take a look at the timing of that. When we overlay timing on top of what I just showed, this demonstrates the earliest reasonable arrival time. So what's the earliest those tropical storm force winds could get to my location? So we're talking right at the coast of North Carolina. We're talking around 8 p.m. Wednesday, and then spreading inland from that point. So we potentially could see, tropical storm force winds in central North Carolina by late evening Wednesday, and certainly overnight into early Thursday morning. So that's the earliest timing. And so we need to, again, based on this, we've got tomorrow. We've got Tuesday to prepare if you haven't done so already. It may be the first half of Wednesday, but certainly, folks need to be wrapped up with preparation activities, certainly by by late Wednesday, or sooner if possible, maybe even midday Wednesday. So based on that as well. Now, of course, again, let me back up here. I don't want to overlook this because, with these winds, certainly we could have wind impacts such as, widespread down trees, which will result in prolonged power outages and that sort of thing, maybe even some direct structural damage. But I also want to point out the heavy rain potential. And this is going to be largely track dependent. Obviously, if the track stays more to the east, then this swath of heavy rain that I'm demonstrating right here, which covers a big portion of central and eastern North Carolina, that area that potentially could see the heaviest rain. If the track goes further off or stays offshore or further to the east, then that heaviest rain swath would also shift eastward. And likewise, if the track were to come in more further to the west or south, then it might shift a little bit further inland. So, but I might point out too that because the storm is expected to slow down, its forward speed is forecast to really come to a slowdown here late in the week and potentially lasting even through the weekend. These rainfall amounts could be a lot more. So if it does a stall out over central North Carolina, then these rainfall amounts could be triple or quadruple, than what we're showing here. So I know you're probably wondering, okay, well, if we're looking at, even what this depicts, right now it's depicting 10 to 15 inches of rain over, the eastern Piedmont and Triangle region and coastal plain. Well, certainly that's going to result in some river flooding. So perhaps the question might be, well, how bad is that potential river flooding? And I thought one way to, let me switch screens here. Bear with me here for just a second while I get the right screen up. I think it's this one, right? Bear with me here for just a second. Nope, that's not it. Stand by. Give me a second here to bring this up. So anyway, we have a longer range guidance product called the MMEFS Ensemble River Guidance page. Now, if you just go to the river forecast maps, if you just click on here, and then you go to our forecast hydrographs, okay? So let's say you just click on, I'll just say Neuse River, Clayton, just randomly. There's the hydrograph, and you're probably wondering, well, gosh, with a forecast of a hurricane coming, why is this hydrograph staying at 1 to 2 feet, right? I mean, here we're talking Thursday into Friday. One obviously it takes, if the rain came on late Wednesday and Thursday, obviously it would take time to respond, and then we might see it starting to rise even Friday into Saturday. So to get a glimpse into what we could potentially see here in this later time frame, because this forecast, as you can see, only goes out to 5 days and only incorporates 2 days of rainfall, the next 2 days worth of rainfall. So to try to get a glimpse of what we could potentially see beyond that, go back to our main page, weather.gov/Raleigh, go to Rivers and Lakes, and go to this MMEFS Ensemble River Guidance page. And if you click on that, what this does is it uses a variety of ensemble models. I'll put this out here right now so folks know this does the ensembles from the European are not available on here. This is only from the GFS ensemble members, okay, in the North American ensemble forecast, in the short range ensemble. So one of the forecast models, ensemble models we've been watching, of course, is the GFS. GEFS stages. So if we look at how much rain, the range of possibilities for rainfall, what this tells us is the range of possibilities of rainfall. And clearly, a lot of the models of the GFS still keep the track further to our east, which results in these lower rainfall amounts. We're talking, 2, 3, 4 inch rainfall amounts. But the tracks that shift further west, or the tracks that, say, bring the center up along I-40, would have much more substantial rainfall amounts. Like you see here, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 inches of rain. Okay, so what does that do to the rivers? How do the rivers respond? And how they respond is that was what we just looked at, the rainfall. And keep an eye on these outliers here. That would represent a track further west. Here's what the resulting river forecast would look like. Notice how the more rain we get, the larger these numbers are. So let's take a look, for instance, at the Neuse River. And on your own time, you can go and check out all the rivers, but I'm just going to randomly pick the Neuse River here. And here's the potential rainfall amounts from all these different ensemble members. And you can see that the higher rainfall amounts are, these 8, 9, 10, 11-inch rainfall amounts. Okay, if we get that, and that's what's currently forecast. So what would that result on the rivers there? And I just picked Goldsboro. So using Goldsboro is the one I randomly pick. Notice how those high rainfall amounts result in much higher river flooding. So clearly the bulk of the members are down here at these lower values, but that represents, these lower values represent a track that keeps the center over the Outer Banks, or the center over the Pamlico Sound. If we get a track that goes up I-40, then we're going to end up with these, more than likely end up with these higher rainfall amounts and much greater potential for river flooding. All right, so I apologize for the going a little deep here in the science. I hope that has helped in some manner to get a sense for, if it does take a further west track, we're going to end up with rainfall amounts that could result in some substantial rainfall, substantial river flooding as we head into very late this week and over the weekend and even into early next week. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to our event summary. So there is an increasing risk of life-threatening. Actually, this should probably say 3 life-threatening impacts. Certainly, storm surge at the coast, freshwater flooding from a prolonged heavy rainfall inland, and then, of course, I added to that high winds later this week when combined with wet ground could result in substantial tree damage and widespread and prolonged power outages. Now, of course, it's too soon to determine the exact timing, location, and magnitude of these impacts. Residents of central North Carolina should closely monitor the progress of Florence and ensure that their hurricane plan is in place and follow any advice given by local officials. Now, again, just a reminder for those at the coast, the large swells are going to continue to affect the coast, and those will result in life-threatening surf and rip currents. It's already underway. So now is the time to prepare if you haven't done so already. And if you need some advice on preparedness suggestions, readync.org is a great resource for that. So that's our summary. Let me just quickly remind folks that inland offices will be issuing tropical products. What that means is instead of last year and years prior, for wind, we would address wind with wind advisories and high wind warnings. This year, we're going to use tropical storm and hurricane warnings to avoid any confusion with the coastal counties. All right. And then, of course, be sure to check out our new tropical webpage. That's up. That's live. It's running. It's a great resource, weather.gov/Raleigh/tropical. Definitely a good resource. All right. We'll do this briefing again at 11:30 tomorrow, and certainly 11:30 a.m. and 5:30 right through the event duration. So